The dog said you're like a Pandora box, I swear to God. Speaking of Pandora boxes, do we want to know how Pandora boxes will act if they were full of E-Force? Because right now we are going into a history lesson that apparently involves an E-Force. So essentially Gasbeard want to give her a taste of her own shit, talking forcefully. In the literal sense, damn. So, do we want to watch an Animarchy history video? My then we do want. The Americans who won World War II with crime. Grand Theft Panzer. And apparently the E4 Mafia is involved. We are going... we are going to strategically transfer equipment to an alternate location on an industrial scale right now. How long is it? Over an hour and a half. Oh, we are here for a long time, fellas. And it's about to be good. By the way, you noticed your follower number? Oh yeah, on Twitch it's 60. 60 exactly. And I already seen that a lot of people were coming to YouTube now. Yes, I mean, I'm happy being one. Good. Whew, let's see. Let's see what the E-Force were up to in World War II. Shall we? Yes.
In the United States military, there is a clandestine operation dating back to the founding of the Continental Army. An international crime syndicate that has branches in every single country's armed forces around the world. A cabal of corporals, a cartel of chiefs, an underground network of senior enlisted personnel whose sole mission is the acquisition of mission-critical equipment by any means necessary.
Oh boy.
Because no officer in the chain of command is stupid enough to inquire as to how they got any of it. They are the world's oldest fight club, and...
Oh boy. As I said before, you sick diabolical drenched, and I love how human voice. Kudos to you, Godsir. Yeah, kudos to you, Darkseid.
They operate under the same rules of the Fight Club. You don't talk about it. That organization is, of course, the E4 Mafia.
Oh boy.
An institution that lives by its ancient and most sacred motto. There is only one thief in the military. Everyone else is just trying to get their shit back. Yet during World War II, this secret order of free market entrepreneurs would go public for the first and only time in their history, when the commanding general of the 83rd Infantry Division, Robert C. Macon, gave them the order to reveal themselves to the world by issuing them letters of marque to seize anything the division could use to achieve their ultimate goal. That goal was Berlin. The crime wave that followed would go down in history as the fastest advance ever made by an infantry division during a modern war. Where the men of the 83rd would take everything not nailed down that could prove useful. If it had wheels, shot ammunition, aided in communications, or filled their stomachs, it was theirs. No question.
What about the ladies? I'm pretty sure there was at least one E4 who stole a lady into America. I'm pretty sure. And that was not Operation Paperclip, by the way.
Asked. And in this effort, they earned a legendary nickname. The Ragtag Circus.
How?
Forget strategic transfer of equipment to alternate locations. This wasn't your regular crime.
Oh boy. If I can make contact with one E4, then I even have a way to erase the evidence. Good. Well, and that ASVAB skit fan made is fucking good because he had actual military people to help him accurately do the shit. The skit. Yeah, that's awesome.
No. This wasn't stealing. No. This was tactical hardware expropriated for further tasking.
That's where it came from.
This was organized crime.
Theft. Nice one, Animarchy, nice one.
This was felony theft. And today, we are going to go through both their myriad of heroic exploits and their extensive rap sheet. Right after a word from our sponsor.
Good lad.
Germany is always difficult.
Also, theft is legal as long as it follows that acronym. Pretty much, yeah. The video was made 8 months ago. Oh my god. Animarchy is into the joke.
Something the men of the 83rd can definitely attest to. However, since the end of the Cold War, the German military has been steadily decaying with lack of funding and low manpower, with fewer and fewer volunteers and a conscription system that is woefully out of date. However, with the war in Ukraine, that appears to be changing.
Right. Is that part of the ad?
Given I
ground news. Okay, let's skip the ground news ad. Skip it. Here we go.
And now back to the Grand Theft Auto shenanigans of the Ragtag Circus.
Oh boy.
Alrighty, so before we start, I should say that this is part 2 of a 2-part series.
What?
However, I have very intentionally edited these videos so you don't need to watch both if you just want to watch the iconic Race to Berlin part. However, doing that is like skipping straight to the Death Star attack in Return of the Jedi. You're missing a bunch of cool stories as well as context. Thus, I shall do a quick recap, and if you want to watch the full version, you can go back and watch it. The 83rd Infantry...
Wait. To what video Animarchy is referring to? Wait. Let me look up real quick. Most likely this one. Most likely this video. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Division, made up of the...
we will look it up later. Like, on the next week.
331st, 330th, and 329th Infantry Regiments landed in Normandy halfway through June to relieve the 101st Airborne around Carentan. And once they got in position, they began kicking some serious ass, paving the way for the breakout from Hedgerow Hell in Operation Cobra and the capture of St. Lo. During that campaign, many acts of heroism took place. Most notably, one of the division's battalion commanders, one Francis Faber, single-handedly repelling a counterattack led by a Tiger tank, and he did it by pulling his Colt 45 and chasing it down Tom Hanks style.
Wait, come again?
Commanders, one Francis Faber, single-handedly repelling a counterattack led by a Tiger tank, and he did it by pulling his Colt 45 and chasing it down Tom Hanks style.
He pulled a gun on a tank and fucking won. What?
He climbed onto the engine deck of the thing while it was fighting and mag dumped into the engine. Then, after being pulled out of Normandy, they were tasked to take the fortress city of...
Good lord. And the rule for the USA, if you're not cheating, you're not even trying. True. Absolutely true.
St. Malo, where they had to fight street to street and assault multiple...
And if you are cheating and you lost, you were not cheating enough. Or you will cheat, or you were cheating wrong. One out of two.
Complexes, as well as a literal castle. However, they didn't have to seize all of them, because the 83rd's other most famous skill, aside from Grand Theft Auto, is having officers with more riz than any other unit in the Allied armies. Multiple goddamn times, one of their commanders would just walk into a German headquarters, either under a flag of truce, or even as a prisoner, and just talk them into giving up. He would roll a nat 20 on his charisma check and just convince them to surrender.
Damn.
And this went to the extent that the commander of the 329th Infantry Regiment's Recon Unit, one Lieutenant Sam W. McGill Sr., drove 60 miles behind enemy lines in his Jeep, found a German general, and then convinced his entire army of 20,000 men to just give up without a fight.
No way.
They got so good at this that the 83rd took more prisoners than any other division in the European theatre of World War II. If the enemy didn't surrender, though, they had men like Colonel Edwin Crabble, nicknamed Buckshot, who commanded the 329th Infantry Regiment, and along with him, you have his personal problem solver, the legendary, iconic Captain Granville Attaway Sharp, who might as well be the protagonist of this story, because this is a man who would look at any tactical situation he was confronted with and simply say, nah, I'd win. Which he did. Every time.
Damn.
The man just kept winning, like a ridiculous amount. I mean...
Walks back over to my coffin and lifts the lid to return to my box. Oh wait. Thank you for your service, tax attendant. Good lord, is that entire unit just made out of the Avengers of the E4 Mafia division? Because what the hell is going on?
Seriously, this man has so much aura that not only does he share a name with the greatest soldier in cinematic history, he doesn't die like Sean Bean, and while he survives, he also styles on the enemy while kicking the shit out of them.
Damn.
To the extent that during the middle of a pitched battle, he stole a speaker truck from a psychological warfare unit, which he then used to blast patriotic American music during their assaults on St. Malo's various fortresses. The man even intentionally switched songs mid-battle to the Star Spangled Banner when it looked like they were winning for maximum style points.
Oh my god! That is so awesome! That is so absolutely redneck awesome. It's the cherry on top of a perfect cake.
Clearly in the face of such massive
Fucking shit for Central Prefan. Yes, yes, yes. He was just flexing on them at this point.
maximum style points. Clearly in
Oh
the
my
face of
God.
such massive balls and Allied air supremacy threatening to drench their bunker system in napalm, but hey-ho, the Germans decided to surrender without resorting to a final climatic battle.
Yeah, good. He lifts my lid slightly. They are just good old boys. Closes the my box. Yeah, those are good old boys.
Earning the 83rd Infantry a spot on the cover of Times magazine thanks to the famous female war reporter Lee Miller. After which,
Damn.
they went around clearing through the rest of France, captured an entire German army, as I mentioned before, and then, just as an added flex, liberated the entire country of Luxembourg.
Damn.
And that brings us right up to date to October 1944.
But to be fair, Luxembourg is like super small, isn't it? It's like isn't that country like smaller than Israel by 2 times or something? Just asking.
Where, after digging in on the defensive line facing the dark and foreboding landscape of the Ardennes forest, the legend of the ragtag circus truly begins.
Oh boy. And that was only the introduction to them, so now we are starting the fun shit. Okay, you got me super hooked. Like it is like the fisherman's hook with the tastiest worms in history. Into the Hurt crushing the bulge. Okay.
As the 83rd had been recuperating after their campaign through France in Luxembourg, the Allied armies had been attempting to break through what the Germans had begun calling the Westwall, a line of fortifications along the western borders of Germany proper and the various river lines scattered throughout the lowlands of Belgium and Holland.
In other words, the E4 Mafia doesn't exist, so stop talking about them. Takes my repeat. Okay.
Operation Market Garden, launched on September 17th, led by the British armies of the northern sector of the Western Front, had since resulted in the worst defeat suffered by the Allies during the campaign of liberation begun in Normandy.
Oh boy.
Meaning the 12th US Army Group, holding the center sector of the front line, would have the responsibility of beginning the advance into Germany and punching through the most heavily fortified part of the enemy's defensive perimeter.
Oh boy.
That being the Siegfried Line.
Of course.
As such, in early October, US forces began their advance eastwards with the goal of capturing the largest urban center on the Germanic-Belgian border, the ancient cathedral city of Aachen. But capturing a city is a time-consuming and expensive process in terms of supplies and manpower if the enemy is able to contest it. As such, the best way to capture a city is to encircle it first, thereby forcing the garrison to capitulate due to lack of supply or reinforcement, which is exactly the conclusion General Omar Bradley drew. Thus, several US Army corps maneuvered to either side of the city to begin the encirclement operation, while a direct assault was launched on the city itself. Yet the southern flank of this operation was faced with a challenge that no one had expected. They had stumbled upon a heavily forested labyrinth of hills and valleys. The canopy of trees was so thick, barely any light reached the forest floor. However, the rain did, turning the roads and wooded paths into rivers of mud so deep, tanks would slide off the roads and plunge into valleys, never to be recovered. Yet they had to break through into Germany. They had to breach the Siegfried Line. And so, the Americans ventured forth into the Hurtgen.
Hurtgen, okay, that's how it's called.
Slaughter. Through the months of October and November, no less than 5 US divisions advanced into the Hurtgen forest, for only 2.5 to come out. Both sides fought for every hill, every trench, every bunker system. The Germans had reinforced their fighting positions with logs, tunnel networks, and pre-sighted artillery kill zones. This went to the extent that they had developed their own equivalent of the famous proximity fuse, setting their artillery to burst in the treetops above US troops, raining hot shrapnel and deadly sharp wooden splinters onto the poor exhausted GIs, whose foxholes were subsequently rendered useless. In 2 months of fighting, the city of Aachen had been captured, and other units were already advancing into Germany. But the men in the Hurtgen forest were desperately fighting for every inch of ground and getting absolutely nowhere.
Fucking hell, yeah, it is super scary. Like, obviously, war is hell, always, no argue, but this is a special kind of hell.
To resume the offensive and finally begin the advance into Germany proper, a concentrated effort needed to be made to break through this deadlock and reach the River Ruhr, a successful crossing of which into the city of Düren would breach the Siegfried Line and open the way for a general advance to the symbolic guardian of the German Reich, the River Rhine.
Huh.
The operation was codenamed Operation Queen, a large-scale offensive to reach the Rhine and break into the Ruhr Valley by smashing the Siegfried Line in multiple places, culminating in the capture of the city of Cologne. This operation began on November 16th, 1944, as throughout the Hurtgen Forest, the 1st and 4th Infantry Divisions slammed into prepared enemy positions. Yet once again, progress was far below expectations. Casualties were devastating. Now fighting on home soil, the Wehrmacht and the SS launched relentless counterattacks on any Allied unit that managed to take any ground at all.
Fucking hell. Some say if you drink every color of the repeats, then you enter God mode. What the hell is a repeat, by the way? Give me a second. Because I'm not sure if I ever heard of a repeat. Maybe repeat drink. Repeat drink. An energy drink, okay. Huh. Yeah, that tracks. That tracks a lot.
Using coordinated artillery barrages on pre-sighted positions, the accuracy and volume of fire of the Germans was devastating. However, worse still for the Allies was the weather. Winter had arrived, and the constant rain had rendered the roads practically unusable, and the ever-falling temperatures were inflicting severe damage to the attackers in both exposure casualties and crippling their already fragile morale. By early December, as the snow began to fall, the Americans had made it 2/3 of the way through the forest at the cost of almost 35,000 men killed or wounded. The 4th Infantry Division in particular had suffered so many casualties they were rendered combat ineffective and unable to continue the advance.
Jesus.
To continue the offensive, they needed reinforcements.
Read
they
the
needed
contents.
a sledgehammer.
Wait, the contents? You know what? Very quickly. I will do that very, very quickly. Okay, pretty much the same as in a Monster Energy drink. 160 milligram, like plus minus 10 milligrams, not really a difference. 16 ounces can of the repeats. Yeah, of a repeat. Like it's the same as a Monster can. Literally almost the same. 1-to-1. Yeah, pretty much the same. But is there something like super specific in a repeat? Whatever, let's continue watching the video. I don't know. Yeah, me neither.
To blast through the Germans and race to the River Ruhr before they could blow the bridges.
Simply put, their energy drinks and sugar is high. High sugar. Oh yeah, you will have one hell of a crash after like 3 or 4 drinks and 2 hours. Yeah. You will have a crash so bad that the Titanic will look gentle.
The advance. To continue the offensive, they needed reinforcements. They needed a sledgehammer to blast through the Germans and race to the River Ruhr before they could blow the bridges. What they needed was the Thunderbolts.
Huh?
On December 4th, 1944,
Thunderbolts?
the men of the 83rd Infantry Division
the P-47s, oh boy.
Relieved the 4th after their horrific ordeal and began one of their own. The 330th Infantry Regiment launched an attack on the village of Strasse just outside the edge of the forest, and initially the attack went well. Resistance was heavy, but that was expected. What wasn't expected was the counterattack that nearly resulted in an entire company being encircled and wiped out, a fate only avoided by the timely arrival of armoured support.
Not really, but it's also what we give to our troops. The energy drink? Huh, okay.
Even then, the tanks took casualties of their own. Eventually, though, the 330th took the town of Strasse and kept moving forwards towards a farm.
This lore is something that's for sure, yeah.
Estate to the east of the village. Lieutenant William L. Devitt recalled in his memoir Shave Tail trying to take the main farmhouse. 2 M4 Shermans were wrecked in front of it, having been destroyed in the previous battle, and the Germans had very evidently strong-pointed the position. After a running firefight across the open field in front of the estate, he and his company began surrounding the main farmhouse, preparing to storm it, only for the Germans inside to launch a coordinated effort to attain fire superiority, mag dumping and sending belts of MG42 fire out of every single window at the advancing Americans. Among this chaotic exchange of fire, a young private named Private White turned to Lieutenant Devitt and said, "Hey LT, do you reckon the 50 cals on top of those tanks still work?" "I don't know," the lieutenant replied. "Well, I'm gonna go find out." This 19-year-old kid had apparently been channeling the same gods of war Audie Murphy had done the year earlier, because he sprinted through a hail of MG42 fire, climbed on one of the wrecked Shermans, and then proceeded to obliterate the Germans firing from the top floor. He caused such a problem that the few Wehrmacht troops that survived the fusillade threw several grenades at him, wounding him severely. Though thankfully, the medic was right next to the lieutenant and was able to save his life.
Thank Lord.
The men of the 330th would take the town of Strasse and the woods to the east of it. And they wouldn't be the only ones to achieve some success, albeit at heavy cost. At the very same moment, the men of the 331st Infantry Regiment were fighting through the town of Gay in a violent house-to-house struggle.
Wait, the Germans have a town that is called the Gay? No way! I do not believe you. I don't believe you. If I beg your finest pardon. You can literally say there is gay inside Germany. and that would be a factual statement. Oh boy.
It was so brutal, the official history of the regiment, titled We Saw It Through, describes the battle in visceral detail. And I quote, "We slugged our way out of the forest, and hurling our might against the German town of Gay on December 10th, smashed one of the most formidable Nazi strongholds on the outskirts of the Hurtgen forest, and drove the stubbornly resisting enemy to the banks of the Ruhr River, just south of Düren. Gay was one of the most strategic strong points in the network of German defences.
Well, time to fact check.
Protecting the vital approaches to Düren. Situated at the edge of the Hurtgen forest, it lies in a valley through which all roads leading from the forest cross. The Germans were determined to hold this town, which they had built into a veritable fortress. Every house was a complete 90 arsenal. At each window, large supplies of ammunition were stacked. The basement of every home reinforced with double walls of cement and steel. Each one was a pillbox. For 3 days, the Nazis continued to pour reinforcements into the town as we fought in a house-to-house struggle, punching again and again until the enemy was forced from the cellars and the corners. Nearly every company in our regiment had a crack at this heavily defended position and felt the sting of the enemy's force. We fought through artillery, mortar, machine gun and small arms fire. As each house was taken, we held it against the most violent enemy counterattacks. Supporting tanks were knocked down on both sides of the town by mines in the streets, bazookas and artillery fire. Supplies could only trickle through. It was impossible for jeeps or any vehicle to get near the town, as the Jerrys continuously pounded the town's approaches with artillery fire.
Damn.
Basements of houses became aid stations, where only medical aid men of our companies cared for the wounded. There were no battle lines. Each house was either an American or a German sector. For
Damn.
2 days and a night, our attacking companies were without water, many of our men without food. And then, from one point of high ground to another, with support of tanks, artillery and engineers, we stabbed relentlessly forward through enemy anti-personnel minefields in rain, ankle-deep mud, and snow. And we pushed the Germans back while beating off a series of successive, savage counterattacks, eventually securing a foothold on the west bank of the Ruhr River.
Nice.
They weren't the first unit of the 83rd to secure a foothold on the river, though. The 330th Infantry Regiment got that honour after they captured the town of Untermalbach. In fact, it was our friend Lieutenant Devitt's company who led the charge on that effort.
Huh?
An effort he was nominated to receive the Medal of Honor for. Except, there is no dramatic story behind his nomination. Instead, the reason he got the nomination is the colonel in command of the assault watched him walk across a field nonchalantly under heavy enemy fire to rejoin his men, who were at that moment desperately trying to capture a bridge over the river before the Germans blew it up.
Damn.
The award was later downgraded to a Distinguished Service Cross,
Okay.
and then subsequently withdrawn. Lieutenant Devitt
What?
didn't want to be decorated and subsequently wasn't. Why?
Huh.
Well, the answer's simple. The reason he was walking across the field instead of running was due to the fact that he had eaten an expired K ration and was suffering from what was called a case of the GIs. Or another
So in other words, he was trying to not shit himself while running. Okay.
words, a crippling bout of diarrhea. And running would mean relaxing his lower bowel muscles,
Oh,
which
boy.
in turn would cause a catastrophic demolition of his pants.
Oh yeah.
Thankfully, food
Yeah. That was not an act of courage. That was an act of trying to not shit yourself in the pants. Oh dear lord.
and Devitt, but unfortunately for the Allied armies, the only demolition that occurred that day was that of the Untermalbach Bridge over the Ruhr River.
Damn.
The hopes of a crossing were dashed to the winter winds. But there was one more regiment yet to enter the fight. Their job was to push towards the town of Düren itself, and the last hope of a bridge. The main character
Gay is a town in Poland nowadays. Sure. Yeah. Also, what the fuck am I looking at? Never mind.
characters once again made their entrance, as the 329th Infantry Regiment
Thank you,
arrived to the
Rainbow.
battle. Unlike the other two infantry units in the 83rd, the 329th had to clear the remaining unsecured area of the Hurtgen Forest, heading northeast. The Germans were entrenched in prepared positions, just as they had been for the duration of the battle. Lieutenant Sam W. McGill and his recon platoon had made the initial probe into the Hurtgen, and realized that the intelligence reports they had been getting were not exaggerating. In fact, they were understating just how bad the situation was. If they got bogged down in another tree-to-tree fight like the other units,
Just checked. Thank you, Darkseid.
they get slaughtered like everybody else. Colonel Buckshot Crabble briefed his battalion commanders accordingly with his operational intent. They had to get out of the forest at whatever the cost. And once again, it was now Major Granville Attaway Sharp
Oh.
who stepped up to the plate by giving his men a single order. Fix bayonets.
Oh boy.
On December 11th,
Oh, boy.
1944, the men of the 329th Infantry Regiment, with 2nd Battalion in the lead, launched a full-scale attack along their section of the front line. The Germans were taken completely by surprise, as the 4th Infantry Division had suffered so much damage, they hadn't made any offensive moves in the past week. Suddenly, an entire regiment of American GIs with bayonets fixed was sprinting towards them, machine guns providing base of fire, mortars raining hell, grenades flying into bunkers, while their inhabitants had only just woken up at the noise. And when I say it was the entire regiment, I am not being hyperbolic. When the order was given to fix bayonets, this went out to the support teams, the cooks, the radio operators. The entire regiment was on the attack. There was no
Everyone. Fucking get everyone. Fucking everyone. Nice.
reserve, no relief force, nothing. Every man who could fire a rifle and stab a bayonet joined the attack. As Major
Oh god, that's a strong order. Yeah. Very strong one.
Sharp himself recounts.
The 4th Division had been chopped up in the Hurtgen, as had the 28th ahead of them, and as had the 9th Division ahead of them. And it was obvious to us who made the reconnaissance that the one objective we must do was to get through the forest and get out of the forest as quick as possible. The longer we stayed in there, we would be just chewed up with tree bursts from the artillery and mortar fire that came into the woods. My instruction to my commanders was, the objective is the edge of the woods. We're going to make a passage of lines. That is, the 4th Division troops are going to stay in place. We're going to pass right through them and go to the edge of the forest. Now, the German pillboxes in here
Damn.
were all built out of logs and with heavy roofs over them, and had firing slits from them, and then they had trenches to support the firing boxes. My conviction was that there's only one thing to do. That was to attack with everybody forward, no depth to speak of, look for holes if we could, and where we found a hole to go on through it, but don't stop till we get to the edge of the forest. And that was my orders. I advised them, fix your bayonets. This is the first time we ever had an occasion for such a thing, but it was time this time to rout the enemy out with the bayonets or whatever was possible. but don't stop and don't have any fights. Just keep going and get to the edge of the forest. We got to the edge of the forest, and a little after noontime, consolidated the position, and started then making our reconnaissance to get ready for the continuation of the attack the next day.
Damn. Wait, what? I case Ephorus Mephius. Cast. Yeah, I cast Ephorus Mephius. Oh my god. Full force. Full force.
In 3 hours of fighting. Just 3
hours?
The men of the 329th had broken through the German defenses and advanced over 1,000 yards,
Damn.
killing or capturing 2 companies' worth of Wehrmacht troops while reaching the edge of the forest. After all the suffering of the past 2 months, they were the men to get through the Hurtgen and out the other side.
Nice.
Now, the real challenge would begin. The town of Düren had the biggest bridge across the...
No, this is... I cast... Geneva who? Wait, Genoa who? Ah, you mean like Geneva who? Who is Geneva? Yeah.
River in the region. Their objective now was to take it before the Germans could destroy it. The issue was the village of Grusenich lying in between them. A heavily fortified position surrounded by wide open fields covered by multiple MG-42s and PaK-40 AT guns.
Oh boy.
There were a number of avenues the Americans could take in order to seize this objective. There was a small wooded area to their right flank they could use to screen their advance. The problem being it was the obvious route to attack, and if they lost the initiative, they would be pinned in place, leading to the inevitable tree-burst artillery slaughtering them to a man. But pushing across an open field is an equally dicey course of action, as is obvious. Yet they can't leave a fortified tree line on their flank either. It was a rough tactical proposition, but Sharp, as we know, is the certified GOAT, and he, like always, had a plan. The night before the attack, he ordered the 324th Artillery to hit the field in front of them with delayed HE rounds, blowing huge craters for them to take cover in if shit went sideways. Then, the next morning, he ordered them to use the division's entire supply of smoke and white phosphorus, with the heavy guns targeting where they thought the enemy command posts were. And then, he went full send across the field with his entire battalion, taking the Germans by complete surprise. They had expected the attack through the woods and were now completely outflanked. 2nd Battalion, 329th Infantry Regiment, smashed into the town of Grusenich, taking the entire force in the woodline prisoner while seizing the southern edge of the town. With the defences cleared, the engineers followed on behind them, clearing the road of mines and barricades, allowing a unit of M10 tank destroyers to move into the town to support them. By the 15th of December, they had...
give no order, they take that land, so if they surrender, they get a sharp response. Yeah, very sharp.
secured the entire town and begun fortifying their position in preparation for their attack on Düren.
Hold up, what is happening with this Wolverine's tracks, by the way? DM10, from what I remember, is his nickname is Wolverine. Look at these tracks.
The entire town and begun fortifying their position in preparation for their attack on Düren.
Is that like battle damage or something?
The final push across the
Yeah, it looks like battle damage.
River Ruhr was about to begin.
Or like, not like battle damage, but more like terrain damage, if you know what I mean.
Adolf Hitler had other ideas. Because on December 16th, 1944, the early morning sky lit up like it was high noon, as thousands of heavy guns and rocket batteries unleashed a hellish fusillade against the American front line.
Is that the Battle of the Bulge?
The roar of hundreds of heavy diesel engines echoed through the mist as the thunderous drone of the Luftwaffe's last remaining air fleet
They're damaged, yeah.
flew over their heads. It was the beginning of Operation Wacht am Rhein. Watch on the Rhine. Hitler's desperate final push through the Ardennes forest had begun in earnest. And on the edge of what would become the famous bulge in the Allied lines was none other than the town of Grusenich.
Yeah, Battle of the Bulged. Yeah, called it.
Sharp and the men of the 329th had accidentally taken a position right in the path of the Germans' last-ditch offensive to save themselves from defeat at the very beginning of the Battle of the Bulge. Meaning Sharp and his battalion now had what amounted to the entire remaining combat power of the Wehrmacht in the Western Theatre, heading straight for them.
Yeah. I beg your pardon, whose famous bulge? The bulge of General Patton, if I remember correctly. But yeah, basically, if I remember right, the entire German forces tried to like make one last advance, and Patton's divisions, I don't remember which exactly, like one division or multiple, he got stuck in the middle of that German force, and like always this like Patton's force in the middle of this German force is always portrayed like a bulge in the middle of a field. So yeah, that's why it's called the Battle of the Bulge. At least I think so, because I just made it all up, I believe. So yeah, it is my theory. Darkseid, can you correct me, please? In that case.
With no reinforcements and their backs to an open field.
As the best way to kill tank with lesser arms was to hit the tracks. Yeah, that makes sense. Like a grenade to the tracks, it will disable the tank a lot. It will make it an immovable object. You will be able to like flank it and destroy it from the rear or from the side. So yeah, that is a sound strategy.
It was time to do. With no reinforcements and their backs to an open field, it was time to do or die. The artillery was incredibly intense. The most concentrated barrage the 329th had ever been subjected to in their entire combat career. And there was a reason for it. It was a comprehensive rolling barrage, behind which advanced the 3rd Fallschirmjäger Division, elite paratroopers supported by a heavy panzer battalion with Panthers, Jagdpanzers, and anything else they could scrape up for the assault. When the lead elements hit the north side of the town closest to Düren, the fighting quickly devolved into brutal house-to-house engagements resembling the Battle of Stalingrad. The Germans would take the ground floor and trade grenades with Americans on the upper floors as running gunfights took place from street to street. As the battle unfolded, it became clear what the enemy objective was. Their main line of advance was focused on advancing up the main street instead of hitting the town from multiple directions or just bypassing it altogether. They wanted the crossroads to support a rapid mechanized breakthrough. The winter conditions with deep snow and mud made cross-country operations much harder, and sustaining a full-scale armored breakthrough impossible. So just like Bastogne further south, they needed Grusenich to support their advance on the northern flank.
And the Battle of the Bulge, this was the closest way to get back to the enemy for the Nazis. Yeah, I remember that.
Realizing this, the men of the 2nd Battalion brought their M10 tank destroyers up to cover the intersection at the center of town, while assembling every anti-vehicle weapon they had to try and stall the advance. The Fallschirmjägers had seized the buildings around the first 2 crossroads and cut off access to the battalion aid station. Yet the Germans were unable to neutralize it, as severely wounded men, some unable to walk, crawled themselves into firing positions and threw back their assault with unbelievable tenacity, burning through most of the...
So think of it like their fist was the Bulge and the Sharp's team was the defending guard. Huh, okay.
Their ammo in just a few hours. Meanwhile, back on the main street, the M10s had knocked out several German tanks. However, the last engagement had ended in something straight out of War Thunder or World of Tanks, with the M10 and the Panzer IV trading shots at point-blank range, destroying each other. But this turned out to be a fortunate turn of events, as it meant both wrecked vehicles were blocking the road, leaving only a small...
Looks like we're making good pace on this, yeah. Pretty good.
...gap for any follow-on panzers to get through. And, given the situation, they would definitely have to try. Sure enough, another German tank advanced on the position and tried to squeeze through the remaining space on the road, only for one of the 2nd Battalion's company commanders, Captain Bates, to pull off an absolutely insane shot with a rifle grenade, blowing off its track and blocking the road entirely. This turned the tide. The Fallschirmjägers kept advancing, but without their armoured support, they no longer had the firepower to displace the Americans. And as the other battalions of the 329th began rushing to reinforce the beleaguered 2nd, an order came down from Colonel Crabble. Commence regimental counterattack.
Oh boy.
The 3rd Fallschirmjäger never knew what hit them, as Grusenich and the neighbouring town of Rostorf were subjected to the full force of the 83rd Infantry Division's main characters. Major Sharp and his men advanced like men possessed to the north, recapturing their town and taking over 500 prisoners, while the 1st Battalion hit Rohlsdorf so hard from their northern flank that when the commanding officer of the town's garrison surrendered to the Americans, he accused them of a lack of sportsmanship, saying they were dishonorable cheaters for bypassing his elaborate defenses.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trained, bitch. And who are you to talking shit, you fucking German? I'm pretty sure Nick did a video from Sharp's POV. I know that he did a video about the most decorated platoon with Lieutenant Bauk, I believe he was named. Leite Bauk or whatever was his name. Where they were like fighting Hans Gaderians, I believe, or Joachim Piper's unit. Yeah, lol, the old neighborhood were criminal talking scheiße. Yeah, yeah.
And in fairness, he was absolutely right.
Also, Sharp's POV, I don't think I remember that, to be honest, but I will need to look it up. If the Effect Electrician made a video about it, I will watch it. I swear to God, I will watch it.
About that. The men of the 83rd were, and are to this day, famous for their underhanded and unconventional tactics, a reputation they were about to enhance dramatically. But as the ancient adage goes, all is fair in love and war.
Yeah.
Though the United States Army prefers a more modern interpretation. If you ain't cheating,
you ain't trying. Yeah.
By the 17th of December, the 329th Infantry Regiment was back on the offensive towards the town of Düren, forcing the Germans to withdraw in a panic, and by the 18th, they reached the last remaining bridge across the Ruhr River, only for it to blow up right in their faces.
Oh, come on. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. I need to go to the person Toronto. Very, very, very urgent. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I am back. We can continue now with way lighter weight. That was proofreading, whatever.
Well, shit. But, in making this offensive charge, Major Sharp and his 2nd Battalion made several pieces of history. They were one of the only units along the Ardennes front to hold their ground during the initial attack of the Battle of the Bulge.
Damn.
The only ones to successfully counterattack, and by the end of that counterattack, they were the closest Allied soldiers to Berlin in the war thus far. For these heroic actions, the 329th would be awarded the Presidential Unit Citation.
Nice.
Yet R&R would have to wait. The breakthrough made by 1st SS Panzer Corps in the Ardennes Forest had caused a wave of panic to surge through the Allied High Command. The situation was a desperate one, and by the 20th of December, the Germans had encircled the town of Bastogne with the Thunderbolts' old rivals, the 101st Airborne, trapped inside. If this advance was not checked, if the enemy managed to break through, it would split the British and American armies apart from each other while cutting off supply to the entire northern half of the front. Thus, every combat-effective unit that could be spared was rushed to the area, and as the men of the 83rd recovered from their week in the Hurtgen, they were ordered to mount their vehicles and redeploy west at best speed. They would form the vanguard of the Northern Army Group, while Patton's Third Army moved in from the south. They were going to behead the Nazi snake and halt this offensive in its tracks. For what felt like the 100th time, the 83rd Infantry had to make a march of 100 miles at rapid pace during the worst possible climactic conditions.
100 miles in a fucking winter? Oh, it's... In Europe, in Germany, it's... Oh my god, I feel so sorry for the guys.
Of all the infantry divisions in the US Army who could do it, it was them. The rotating truck system they had developed on their march to Kentucky during training all those years ago was put into action once again. And within 3 days, the entire division had moved off the front line, reorganized and redeployed over 100 miles to their assembly area north of the Bulge. And once again, the same thought crossed their mind. Why don't we all have vehicles of our own? This is stupid. If I have to walk through a December blizzard and ruin my Christmas for Uncle Sam, only for him to ask me to invade Germany on foot, I swear to God, after I take Berlin, I'm marching on Washington next.
Okay, by the way, Rainbow Darkseid, are you alive over there in Twitch? Because I haven't seen you talking about anything. Just saying. Yeah, lol. Oh, good to know.
Silent vow was made between the officers and
just a good sidetracked, yeah. Yeah, I can see why.
Men of the Thunderbolts. When we get back to taking Germany, we aren't gonna walk.
Wait, what?
Berlin are marching on Washington next. A silent vow was made between the officers and men of the Thunderbolts. When we get back to taking Germany, we aren't gonna walk. But first, they had to retake Belgium.
Oh, okay.
After pulling off a logistical miracle, another one was achieved. Everyone got turkey with all the trimmings for Christmas dinner.
No
Even the
way.
recon units.
No
Lieutenant
way.
McGill and Major Sharp were forward deployed, and they had Christmas dinner together in their jeeps. They were observing the Germans' forward positions around the town of Rochefort.
Nice.
At the same time, the other regiments in the 83rd were positioning themselves to counterattack at various hotspots along the northern edge of the Bulge. The situation was developing fast, and maintaining a cohesive formation was nigh on impossible. The Allies were throwing whatever they had wherever it was needed, regardless of how messy it got. The Thunderbolts were going to have to rely on their comrades in the 2nd and 3rd Armoured Divisions to cover their flanks in between. In keeping with this
for later, Darkseid, for later.
style as the unit always in the enemy's path, the men of the 329th were the first to enter the battle on December 28th, as the 1st Battalion began their assault on Rochefort. The town was surrounded by a river with just one bridge in or out facing to the west. On the initial attack, only the bridge was guarded, which resulted in an intense firefight. It was then the mad lads in B Company decided that they were just going to take the town themselves and forded the river on foot in the middle of the coldest winter in decades.
Jesus.
Upon entering Rochefort, contact was made with a heavy panzer battalion supported by an entire regiment of SS Panzer Grenadiers. The counterattack they launched against the lead elements attacking the bridge forced the 1st Battalion back across the river, leaving B Company cut off inside the town. At this point, shit had well and truly hit the fan. Sharp's 2nd Battalion was immediately deployed to clear the riverbank to the north and get into a support by fire position, while the regimental reserve was moved to the south. Every single artillery piece available for fire missions were ordered to fire every smoke round they had, ranging from...
Maybe this one, or it might have been Leonard Bot Lamel. Okay, I will look it up. But Bot Lamel, it was the army regents. I remember, Lamel Bot, Leonard Bot Lamel was the Rangers lead the way, the most important man of D-Day, I believe. Wait, let me look it up really quick. Yeah. Lazarus Rich. This is exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah. Exactly. From Sharp's POV. It wasn't exactly Sharp's, it was the ISR unit. The leader of that platoon was Liei Pauk, I believe. Let me look it up once again. Liei Pauk, yeah, knew it. That guy. He was the leader of that recon platoon. Yeah, there was no Sharp at the moment. And this guy was in a different village, like very far away. He was, I believe, just fucking slowing the reinforcements. I feel like I knew it existed, so I went looking. Yeah, thank you, Darkseid.
B Company's estimated position across the river, smoke round they had, ranging from B Company's estimated position across the river all the way back to the tree line they began their attack from. Yet not a single member of the encircled company withdrew. The next day, Easy Company launched a mad dash across the bridge to try and rescue them, only to walk into an ambush from a Stug, which gunned down an entire squad, forcing them to pull back.
Damn.
It appeared that B Company would be wiped out, and all attempts to contact them on the radio failed. It was then a massive firefight could be heard breaking out inside the town. Massive explosions, rockets, grenades, and then silence. The sun rose on December 30th, and everyone prepared to move in to try again, or, if nothing else, to retrieve the bodies. When they suddenly saw Belgian civilians waving happily, and marching across the bridge in perfectly good order, escorting a large group of German prisoners, were the men of B Company, 1st Battalion,
Nice.
329th Infantry Regiment.
Because hearing company names stick a bit in my head. Oh yeah, makes sense.
No one could believe their eyes, least of all Colonel Buckshot Crabble, who rushed out to speak with the commanding officer, one Captain Hill, to find out what the hell just happened. It turned out that in pulling their insane assault across the river, the Germans had been taken totally by surprise. B Company took out an entire platoon of Germans and a tank before they even knew what happened, after which they began the fight for their lives. The SS troops in town immediately counterattacked.
I legit can't figure out what's up with this lore anymore. Me neither, Rainbow. Me neither, to be honest. But you know what? Fuck it. Let the chaos. What was the word? Let the chaos flow. Yeah.
Using their armor to try and blast the GIs out, only for the Americans to pull a move they'd used in Gruzenik 2 weeks before. They retreated to the second and third floors of all the buildings and then barricaded the staircases. In the narrow streets, the Panzers didn't have enough elevation to shoot them on the upper floors, meaning B Company could fight the Grenadiers on equal footing. In their rapid advance, they had taken several of the most important buildings in town, including the railway station and the post office. The Germans knew that as long as the Americans held these key positions, they threatened to cut off and destroy individual units should another wave of GIs show up to reinforce them. And as such, the Germans withdrew from the town. Colonel Crabble, incredibly impressed, congratulated them on this incredible feat of arms. But he still couldn't work out one thing. He asked Captain Hill, why didn't he pull back from Rochefort when the smoke artillery dropped around them?
What? It was time that men told that you can do it. I believe in you, and they took this as gospel. So true, Doctor. It's so true.
It was obvious what they were trying to do, even if the radios weren't working. It was clearly a smoke barrage to allow them to withdraw. Captain Hill replied simply, "It's simple, Colonel, don't you remember? You told us in a regimental staff meeting that if any of us gave up an objective without your express permission, you would relieve us of command."
Huh.
Colonel Crabble, realizing that he couldn't have heard the order to retreat due to the comms failure, began laughing. Salutes were exchanged, and the 329th liberated Rochefort.
Nice.
But they wouldn't be there long. The British relieved them the next day as new orders.
You told me if we retreat without your approval, we will be fucking discharged. We didn't hear an order to retreat. We did not retreat. That's it. We won anyway. Awesome.
Orders came down. They were to regroup with the other two regiments and prepare for a full-scale divisional attack with the 3rd Armoured Division towards the St. Vith Highway. The German advance had been stopped. Now it was time to roll them back. After being bogged down by a blizzard over the new year, on January 9th, the 83rd commenced their attack towards the town of Langelier on the river of the same name. The fighting was absolutely brutal, with the
But boss, you said if we run away we get paid, dog, without your say-so. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Germans counterattacking every chance they got. Yeah,
wait, let me try again. With a different voice. But what was you said if we run away we get a paid, dog, without your say-so. Yeah.
The skies clear for Allied air power. The 3rd Armoured in
a shitty impersonation, but whatever.
Support, and the 331st Infantry leading the way with bayonets fixed. They didn't stand a chance. Casualties were heavy on both sides, but by January 11th, the town was taken and the Germans in full retreat. From there, the entire division began a maximum effort assault to exploit their momentum. In 3 days, they advanced so fast that in the town of Honeyles, they helped themselves to the first hot meal they'd had in a week when the Germans sent their mess unit forward thinking the town was still in friendly hands, not realizing the entire garrison had already surrendered. All that remained now was the final objective in their sector, the regional capital of Bovigny. The men of the 3rd Armoured, who had yet to work with the 83rd,
actual footage of the 341st outside the Bovigny
before this campaign, had orders to take the town in order to link up with Patton's 3rd Army advancing from the south. The leading elements were less than 3 days away. The fighting thus far, though brutal, was finally to their advantage. But they knew that the rearguard action the SS would mount against them would be ferocious.
Looks at my phone being dead. Oh, I need to charge this. Damn, that's it.
However, having not worked with the 83rd for very long, they didn't understand just how the Thunderbolts rolled yet. They didn't know how the men from Camp Breckenridge got down, as it were. That is, until the day their attack on Bovigny began. The The 3rd Armored with the 331st
I
Infantry
swear to God, you both share a hereditary special ed cells. You're a mini him, Cowboy. Oh, I don't know, honestly.
Regiment in support moved up on the German defences and immediately
Maybe, who
came under
knows?
heavy fire. It was then that the lead scout escorting an N5 Stuart at the front of the column, one Private First Class Vesta Skinner,
Sure, you can't deny the facts. Damn it.
jumped up onto the engine deck of the tank, grabbed the commander's 50 cal cupola gun, and just started going ham. The tank
Oh, boy.
commander, Sergeant Jensen, stared in complete disbelief at this guy, just dumping belts through his 50 as the gunner on the tank followed his traces with the 37mm main gun. Private Skinner went through all of the ammo the 50 cal had with sustained fire. After which, he banged on the hatch and demanded Sergeant Jensen's Thompson. Speechless and dumbfounded, Jensen handed his Thompson over along with his mag belt.
Are you disrespecting my son? Oh my God, it's... Oh my God. Oh, what about Crowdad? Oh my God.
Which Private Skinner went through just as fast, blasting every mag he had in the direction of the enemy. Only then, after exhausting all his fully automatic options, did he switch to his M1 Garand. The crew in the tank kept
Absolutely.
firing their own weapons, while clearly hearing a distinct ping every minute or so. Usually that meant a German bullet ricocheting off their armour. However, this time it was one of the 83rd's infantrymen who was on a personal mission to kill every Nazi between him and Berlin.
Wait, let's roll back again. I need to hear it again. Also, Shush Cowboy, Crowdad gave you to Grassbeard. God, no, he didn't. Whatever.
He had in the direction of the enemy. And demand Jensen handed his Thompson over along with his mag belt, which Private Skinner went through just as fast,
Damn.
blasting every mag he had in the direction of the enemy. Only then, after exhausting all his fully automatic options, did he switch to his M1 Garand. The crew in the tank kept firing their own weapons, while clearly hearing a distinct ping every minute or so.
Jesus.
Usually that meant a German bullet ricocheting off their armour. However, this time it was one of the 83rd's infantrymen who was on a personal mission to kill every Nazi between him and Berlin.
He was dedicated to that shit. Rolls up my short sleeve as I walk towards Rainbow as I check my binding tool. Dear God.
He very soon ran out of ammunition for his rifle. Did he finally chill out and stop then? Did he
Nah. He fixed his bayonet, right?
finally calm down and come back to his senses?
Nah.
No. By
I'm a roadrunner, this shit, yes!
now, the M5 had reached the town's perimeter defenses, which meant the enemy was now in grenade range.
Oh God!
Yelling into the turret, he demanded every type of grenade they had. So they hand him the bag of grenades stored in the tank, and then proceeded to watch him throw every last one like a professional baseball player into the German positions.
Damn!
It was only then, now, finally out of weapons, that Private Skinner thanked the crew, hopped off the tank, and lit a cigarette as his comrades proceeded to take the town on January 15th, 1945. This would be the last major...
That was an awesome main character moment. Walks at a Jason Pace, keeping Rainbow in my sideline.
action the 83rd would engage in during the Battle of the Bulge, as 5 days later, General Patton's Third Army would link up with them from the south, and from there they would be relieved. The men of the Thunderbolts had pushed back Hitler's last hurrah, earning themselves a rest, but it would only be a short one,
Oh, damn it.
because all that remained now was to finish the fight. And the men of the
This is
83rd
funny, yeah.
would finish it in style.
Distic Cowboy, I give you 2 somewhat long vids after you finish list for today. Can I give you 2 somewhat long videos after you finish list for today? If we will have the time for later, sure.
Earning themselves
Like today for later.
a name that would go down in history.
Huh? Direct Attack Circus, oh boy. Better that. Let me rewind back because I missed again a few sentences went away from me.
Thunderbolts had pushed back Hitler's last hurrah, earning themselves a rest. But it would only be a short one, because all that remained now was to finish the fight.
Yeah.
And the men of the 83rd would finish it in style,
Oh,
earning
boy.
themselves a name that would go down in history.
All right.
After spending a month
I'm not even sure what Casbert is doing, but I might just shuffle slowly into a dark place. Oh dear God.
in northern Belgium recuperating, orders came down to the 83rd to rejoin the 9th Army under General Simpson for a new offensive into Germany. Codenamed Operation Grenade, its objective was simple: advance to the River Rhine and capture a bridge across. On February 23rd, 1945, the 9th Army opened their offensive along a wide front, with one of the largest artillery barrages launched by the Western Allies during the entire war. Nearly 500,000 personnel across multiple army groups along the approaches to the Rhine moved eastwards, and scattered among various formations were several battalions of the 83rd. For 7 days, the American 29th Infantry and 2nd Armored Divisions made rapid progress along their axis of advance. But the further they advanced into Germany, the wider the front line got. So by March 1st, 1945, the independent battalions attached to other units reconsolidated into their original regiments, and the 83rd Infantry Division stepped off towards their objective: the bridges around the town of Neuss and the city of Dusseldorf beyond.
I can still see you, Rainbow. Don't you know that Americans can buy nods? Night vision headsets, just so you know, Rainbow.
The initial attack went well. There were several heavy skirmishes around the town of Titz. Shut up.
No, just like fucking yeah.
Stop giggling.
Wait,
There were
what?
several heavy skirmishes around the town of Titz. Shut up. Stop giggling. But after a
Tits! Okay.
determined attack from all three regiments, the Thunderbolts broke through and began barreling down the highway towards Neuss.
Wait, so you're telling us to shut up at Tits, but you did not mention anything at the town of Gay. I see you.
However, once they hit the major Autobahn junction in between the two towns of Hammerden and Kapellen, several batteries of Flak 88s supported by a Panzerjäger battalion, comprised of both Pak-40s and tank destroyers, had dug in on the interchange looking down the highway.
He's obviously a man of culture. He sure is.
Thus, when the Americans approached, they began sniping at
Tits
their
are funnier than the town of Gay. Yeah, somewhat.
column, destroying multiple vehicles, while other flak guns in the battery started firing HE frag rounds at the infantry. Realizing that a head-on assault on this position would require heavy fire support that would take too long to catch up, the 83rd Infantry regiments began splitting up along either side of the highway, using the main rail line as cover. Railways at the time, as you know, are sort of elevated on a berm, so they were using the berm to flank along behind them. The 329th and 331st Infantry regiments moved around to the south, flanking the interchange and entering the next town behind them, while the 330th flexed to the north to begin an encirclement. The towns of Hammerden and Kapellen were quickly secured after a vicious firefight, leaving just the entrenched position around the town of Loveling sitting on the interchange. It was then our boy, the now Lieutenant Colonel Granville Attaway Sharp, came in clutch once more. Analyzing the situation, he decided the best way to take out the enemy's entrenched position was to blanket the approach to Neuss with smoke while suppressing the gun positions with HE and white phosphorus in order to provide concealment as well as to burn out the crews. Then, with the aid of the 736th Light Tank Battalion that had moved up to support them, encircled the town of Loveling with the other regiments and then hit it with everything they had, using bounding tactics and the famously American system of fire supremacy. And this plan worked like a charm. The Germans didn't stand a chance. They could barely fire their weapons, the weight of fire was so heavy. Lieutenant Colonel Sharp coordinated the attack like a ballet, to the extent that the artillery and tank support kept up a base of fire right up until the infantry reached the position. The entire town was cleared with minimal casualties, over 200 prisoners taken, and an entire Flak 88 battery wiped out completely.
Damn.
Now all that was left was to take the city of Neuss itself, which posed an even more ferocious problem. With the few towns they'd run across on the highway, they could flank and maneuver around the various strongpoints. Now, facing the city itself, It became apparent that the flak defences set up to protect Dusseldorf from Allied bombers had now been turned to the city's defence. Even more 88s began smashing their positions as MG-42s raked the open fields in front of them. It was going to be a tough assault. There was no way around it. They'd used up a lot of their munitions for the day just to get this far, and casualties would be high if they pressed their luck. It was then that Colonel Buckshot Crabble ordered his battalion commanders to meet at his headquarters, along with the commanders of the other regiments. When they arrived, he announced his idea. They were going to pull the ballsiest move an infantry commander could pull back in those days, especially on a regimental scale. The men of the 83rd Infantry were going to launch a night assault.
Oh boy.
Now, it should be stressed just how dangerous this is. Before the advent of night vision and comprehensive night fighting tactics, coordinating and carrying out a successful night attack is quite literally a nightmare. Due to the stealth-focused nature of the operation, if one thing goes wrong, you could shoot at your friends, miss all your shots at the enemy, or if you arrive on an unknown enemy position, accidentally stumble into a hand.
I'm just looking at what's happening in the Twitch chat. Jesus Christ, you two. Darkseid, leave Rainbow alone, will ya? For the love of God.
Hand-to-hand fight while blowing the entire operation. Units had to be specially trained for this kind of combat in those days, or at the very least had to have had extensive combat experience. But the men of the 83rd, as we know, had both. Not to mention balls of pure steel. Something the Germans found out just after midnight, when what amounted to the entire division breached their perimeter and overran the outer defences from multiple directions. Each regiment picked a bridge in the 83rd sector and beelined towards it, forcing the Wehrmacht to fall back into the city centre to buy time for their engineers. By the next morning, 2nd Battalion...
Also, this isn't exactly denying the fact Krasbeard might a Schumexter person, since he's using the stuff Kingsters might use, yeah.
In 329th was fighting house to house, desperately trying to reach the bridge, when the units moving up behind them noticed that in their haste to withdraw, the Germans had left their Flak 88 batteries completely intact. Thinking fast, the men of the 324th Field Artillery began the first major tactical acquisition by the 83rd Infantry on German soil, turning the guns around and slamming shells into the enemy on the other side of the river. With this new fire support, the Buckshots renewed their attack for one last-ditch effort. The Germans began to rout before them. Victory was in sight. Kaboom. The bridge was blown sky high.
Oh, come on!
As were the other bridges in the sector. Despite the best efforts from everyone in the division pushing as hard as they could, wiping out multiple strong points and taking over 1,000 prisoners, they just couldn't get a bridge.
Damn it.
Yet there was one silver lining. In their aggressive push to Neuss and trading fire with the defenders of Dusseldorf, the 83rd Infantry Division had the supreme honor of being the first American formation to reach the River Rhine. But as we know, dear viewers, every story has to have a grand finale.
Bread mixed with mint. Darkseid, you diabolical!
And after taking 2 weeks off to resupply, receive replacements, not to mention acquiring supplementary transport, the men of the Thunderbolts mounted their vehicles heading towards one of the newly built bridges over the Rhine.
Nice.
Next stop, Berlin.
Oh boy.
In April of 1945, the 83rd Infantry Division began crossing the Rhine River, and their arrival caused a serious hold-up for over an hour, while stunning the bridging engineers coordinating the crossing into disbelief. Everyone knew the end of the war was approaching. The Soviets were storming westwards, and the German economy was teetering on the brink of collapse, with a corresponding effect on their ability to sustain their troops in combat. The writing was on the wall for Hitler's Third Reich, including the Germans themselves. Resistance was crumbling, with mass surrenders and retreats taking place all along the front. But that situation posed a serious question of its own. The Soviets were just allies of convenience. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And no one was under any illusions that the next conflict, 10 or 20 years down the line, would almost certainly be between the two victorious powers. With Germany beaten, the question now wasn't win or lose, it was who gets what after the dust settles. The campaign in Germany was no longer solely a military operation. It was now a race. Who would take Berlin? Who would kill Hitler and his henchmen? Who would get the glory and adulation of generations to come? With all of this in mind, the men of the 2nd Armoured Division were determined that they were going to be the first into the German capital. Right beside them, was the 1st Infantry Division, who in the style of their famous former leader, Terry Allen, said the 1st Infantry was the first for a reason. Yet the airborne divisions of the 101st and 82nd...
Fucking control your parent cowboy. I can't! I can't! That's the problem, Rainbow. I cannot control Grasshopper. At this point, I doubt he's the ones in charge of... I doubt he's the ones in charge of you. Or of you. Yeah, walks back out of the darkness humming his song. Dark side.
The craziest. Yet the airborne divisions of the 101st and 82nd were the craziest. As part of the 1st Airborne Army, they were asking for Eisenhower to authorize an aerial assault on the city itself, using Gatow and Tempelhof airports as landing zones for their divisions, while the British 1st Airborne secured the river crossings on the Elbe. What nobody expected was the dark horse of this race, the 83rd Infantry Division. Nor could they believe how they would go about achieving it. Because, as it turned out, leaving the men of the 83rd unsupervised inside Germany was a critical error on the part of High Command. In the 2 weeks they had been left unsupervised, General Macon had been analysing the situation and drawn the same conclusion as everyone else. Knowing about the truck shortages they'd been dealing with for the entire war, and the fact that 2nd Armoured would be hogging all of the resources, he had given what would become his most infamous order. The 83rd would scour every single German town around them for whatever vehicles they could find. Not only that, if anyone isn't using a piece of equipment that they can find useful, regardless of who it belonged to, it was going to be acquired for the division's use. In the general's own words, with no questions asked.
Nice.
And if you want to help me acquire things so I can keep this channel going, you can join me on Patreon, where if you pay $5 or higher, you get access to the Discord, where you can hang out with me and the rest of my community, as well as get sneak peeks, chat with me directly, and do other fun things. Failing that, if you want to support the channel another way, you can use my promo code JDAM for your next Gamer Subs order. Oh, and remember to like the video and subscribe. Back to it. Friendly units, German civilians, enemy equipment, it didn't matter. If it moved, if you could eat it, if you could shoot it, or if it otherwise proved useful, we're taking it. As I said at the start of this video.
You're a special education. Dear God.
This wasn't your standard strategic transfer of equipment to an alternate location. This was tactical hardware expropriated for further tasking. This wasn't just stealing, this was felony theft. With literally hundreds of counts of Grand Theft Auto.
Hold up. Let me rewind because I lost track again.
Asking to an As I said at the start of this video, this wasn't your standard strategic transfer of equipment to an alternate location. This was tactical hardware expropriated for further tasking.
Half expected him to say this is a bucket.
This wasn't just stealing, this was felony theft. With literally hundreds of counts of Grand Theft Auto.
Damn.
General Macon wasn't doing petty misdemeanors like larceny. Oh, no. This was the E4 Mafia at work. Say it with me, everyone. Let's say the line together. This wasn't just crime. This was organized crime. And this order would stay in effect for the remainder of the war. Every town, every village, every farmhouse, every random passerby driving something with wheels were required to hand over their vehicles, and I quote, or else.
Or
so
else,
when the 83rd reached the pontoon bridge across the Rhine, what the bridging engineers and AA gunners protecting it saw was absolute chaos. At the head of the column was the division's attached tank battalion, and aboard each tank was between 20 to 30 infantrymen hanging off the back, Soviet style.
Damn.
Then
I mean, like, because what's going on with Rainbow? You fucking ask me. Darkseid, you gave him PTSD. What the hell are you talking about?
The jeeps, with 8 to 10 men per jeep. Except the jeeps also had cargo trailers being towed behind them, and in those trailers were another 5 or 6 guys, which everyone knew was exceedingly unsafe, but no one could go about calling them out on it, because on the jeeps they also saw random divisional crests, One jeep was from a British artillery unit. Another was from the headquarters company of a completely different division based over 20 miles away. And some of them they didn't even recognize. Meanwhile, the 2.5-ton trucks were also towing trailers. And gun carriages. And farmers' hay carts. And milk trailers. And about every kind of trailer, actually. All of them, once again, filled with the men of the 83rd. Macon's men had tactically acquired every form of conveyance in their area of operations, and I mean every form. Abandoned German military vehicles were towed from the battlefield, repaired, painted green, painted white stars on the side, and then repurposed.
They fucking yanked everything out of everyone. Jesus!
In fact, the reason they held everyone up for an hour was because they had tactically acquired an old Mercedes sedan which didn't have enough floor clearance to get over the hinge joints in the bridge.
Jesus.
They tried to bring a car
True E-Force, yeah, true E-Force.
across that was too low, and that would have jammed up the entire bridge for an hour or so. So, they ditched that one, and promised to get another.
Damn.
Which they did. And I need to stress to you, this was before their offensive drive had begun. They haven't even crossed the Rhine yet.
You're kidding right now.
Once their advance started on April 5th, things would only get more unhinged.
Oh boy. You know why this is what's going on? Yes.
After initial skirmishes with the Germans revealed that they were on their last legs, the Americans decided that it was time to make their play. The 2nd Armoured set their sights on the city of Magdeburg, the jewel on the Elbe River. The 83rd was assigned to the sector just south of 2nd Armoured, and as such, they aimed for the town of Barbie to the southeast, which, if you check your map, is closer to Berlin. Both units knew, even if it wasn't officially sanctioned, this was a race. And in the words of 2nd Armoured's commander, General White, no damned infantry division is going to beat my outfit to the Elbe.
Are you sure about that?
Now,
Yeah.
if I was keeping to the format of the rest of this video and the first part of this series, I would start breaking down each battle they got into, what various hijinks they did, but honestly, I can't for this part. Simply because they advanced so damn fast, there aren't any battles for me to talk about.
What?
The 329th Infantry Regiment got assigned a light tank battalion to assist them in their operations.
Jesus.
When they showed up, Lieutenant Colonel Sharp immediately assigned his old crew from Company G as their infantry escort, and then got authorization to detach them as their own independent task force, named Task Force Biddle. The reason he did this is really straightforward. Tanks move faster than infantry, and we've got a race to win. So he sent them out ahead of his battalion at best speed. Within 2 hours of operations, they had taken 5 entire towns, 2,000 prisoners of war, and seized even more vehicles for the division. And they weren't the only ones. The 331st Infantry Regiment, advancing alongside them, had already reached the Weser River and were already prepping assault boats to cross it, which they would do the next morning, capturing the towns of Falkenhagen and Poller, while taking yet more prisoners and, yes, even more vehicles.
Of course.
The division's rate of advance was simply staggering, averaging around 30 miles a day, and no one could believe just how fast they were moving. Not even the Thunderbolts themselves could believe how fast. Originally, they thought they'd have to fight for the Weser, and the 331st, as mentioned before, had already made an assault crossing. The 329th Buckshots, however, decided that they were going to do things a little differently. As they were on the northern
But when we take things, we take it all. So true.
flank of the 83rd's advance, they were in the sector bordering the 2nd Armoured's, and they had already crossed. And given they were mostly tanks, it stood to reason that they would have already had to have set up a pontoon bridge. Seeing an
Good
opportunity,
philosophy, yeah.
the 329th had decided that such a nice, wonderful bridge, it's a beautiful bridge, and it should belong to them. Yes, the 329th stole the 2nd Armoured's bridge, which they then used to double their speed of advance. Ernest Leisner from the Army newspaper Stars and Stripes was riding along with Colonel Buckshot Crabble in the 329th HQ company, witnessing the absolute shenanigans they were pulling. He had been travelling throughout the regiments in the division and had been taking note of the various vehicles. The pride of the 83rd's acquired transport was a pair of fire engines, which the lead assault force in the division rode into battle at the front of the convoy, bells and sirens ringing all the way, with a giant banner flying from the hydrant assembly on the back. The banner read, 83rd Infantry Division, next stop, Berlin.
Nice.
But these fire engines were just the tip of the iceberg, as it were.
Hold the fuck up. Is that a Panther tank with an American star? They stole a fucking tank. They stole a motherfucking tank. If you're not cheating, then you're not trying to. Yeah, to win. Yeah. Okay, I'll be back in a moment. I need to go to the porcelain throne again because I've drunk way too much gamer subs. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I am back. What the hell? Looks back at 3 and 2. Give me a second to finish building some Legos. It's back and wait. I'm a great scientist, but goodbye. What? I'm such a savage reaching for your Legos. Let me finish building Ghost Rider's bike in peace. Another round of fuckery or what? Let's continue.
They were the propaganda piece they were using to flex on the Wehrmacht. They had stolen a lot more than that.
Oh,
we
boy.
know of multiple Panthers, a couple of Tiger 1s, a
No
Stug
way.
or 2, a King Tiger as seen on the thumbnail, an entire battalion's worth of 250 and 251 half-tracks, Opel Blitz trucks, vegetable trucks, coal delivery trucks, several school buses, even more regular buses, over 30 Kubel wagons, an assortment of family sedans and motorcycles, sidecars to go with them, a Schwimmwagen or 2, a bunch of various vehicles they'd acquired from the 2nd Armored Division while they weren't looking, and
Is that a fucking King Tiger?
fucking cement mixer. No, I'm not joking. These guys were riding into battle towards the capital of Nazi Germany on a goddamn cement mixer.
What the fuck?
But all of that, yeah, all of that isn't the coolest. No. The coolest is what Mr. Leisner from Stars and Stripes witnessed happening with his own eyes. Because the
that
329th Infantry stole limousines.
No!
And they did it in the funniest and most gangster way possible.
A
Quite
limousine!
literally. You see, the 83rd was, as mentioned before,
There's no fucking way they stole a fucking limo.
or advancing on average 30 miles a day, which even by World War II standards is absolutely ridiculous. Front lines had essentially ceased to exist at this point, and instead it was more like a modern battle royale video game. The towns, with all the good loot, are hotspots where major battles happen, and everything else is just a running free-for-all with the occasional gunfight here and there. Thus, the 83rd were barreling down the autobahns of central Germany, practically unopposed, 50 miles behind where the lines are supposed to be. And their convoys are filled with enemy vehicles. So naturally, senior German officers withdrawing from the occupied Netherlands and the rapidly collapsing defense of the Ruhr Valley would be retreating eastwards towards Berlin on the Autobahn. Now imagine, if you will, you are a German general. You've been running eastwards as fast as your Mercedes allows you, scanning the skies for enemy fighter bombers you know are loitering around. It's at this point you come up on a Wehrmacht convoy filled with random trucks and half-tracks from all over the place. Some of them are towing hay carts, there are random trailers, and you swear you saw a cement mixer somewhere in there. Man, the situation must be desperate out here. But you must report to the Führer in Berlin. They need defenders. So you honk your horn and move to the left side of the road to overtake, pulling alongside the command half-track to tell the officer in charge to clear the road. Wait a minute. Why does this half-track have a white star on it? Suddenly, an American Jeep pulls out in front of you, in the back of which are 5 GIs, all of whom are pointing their M1s at you, signaling you to pull over or else. Well, shit. You're a prisoner. Oh well, at least it's the Americans instead of the Russians. And then these guys ask you for your keys, paint a white star on your limo, and just fucking drive off, leaving you to surrender to the rear echelon guys half an hour back the way you came. They did this more than once.
Pulling up a drive-by on the German. Oh my god.
Even did it to an entire convoy. They pulled up on a German column led by a colonel retreating eastwards to regroup on the
Drive-by Germans be funny.
Elbe River defensive line, only for the 329th.
Now imagine them doing that exact drive-by with that limo. Like on some German fucking general. Oh, it would be, it is hysterical.
Eastwards to regroup on the Elbe River defensive line, only for the 329th
Oh my god.
pull up alongside, order them to stop, take their weapons, and then subsequently carjack them. They whipped out the OD green and white paint, quick brush job, and away they went. This shit is unbelievable. Could you imagine being a German general? You've got this priceless Mercedes automobile. You are a general with all these ranks and medals and everything all over you. And these guys don't even ask to take you prisoner. No. They just stop you. Can we have your car? Thanks. And just leave. And just drive away. Oh, man. But lest you think this speed of advance would be slowed down by silly things like urban combat or taking prisoners. Oh boy. No. If you thought their prisoner-taking shenanigans in France were ridiculous, get a load of this. Captain Francis Schomer, or Skomer, of the 329th, had developed a strategy to take towns without a fight by taking a leaf out of his friend Lieutenant Colonel Sharp's book.
Huh?
During their sweep of the rear areas before the operation began, he had tactically acquired a psychological warfare speaker truck, just like Sharp had at the Battle of St. Malo.
Oh boy.
Every time his unit ran into a town with defenders, he would roll up with his boombox, radio the artillery,
I am reaching for shit, you.
and then blast the entire area with smoke shells. As the smoke billowed into forming a screen, he would yell out over the PA system that if any man wanted to surrender, he could throw down his weapons and run through the smoke to American lines. The smoke screen would prevent any SS blocking detachments from shooting them for cowardice. Failing that, they also had the other option of using the smoke as cover to run away. Either one suited the 83rd, they weren't fussed, to be honest. And this strategy worked countless times.
Damn.
Until their truck broke down, because they were doing God knows how many miles a day.
Fuck.
So he needed a new plan. It was then, while taking yet another town, he had an idea. Knocking on a nearby door, he asked where the town hall was, and more importantly, where the mayor was. With that information secured, he went and found the mayor, stuck a gun in his face, and then demanded all vehicles in the town be surrendered to the division, as was standard protocol, and then he ordered the mayor to call his counterparts in the next few towns over and tell them what was transpiring. All vehicles must be handed over, all German troops must either surrender or vacate the town, and make sure to put white flags in all of the windows. Failure to do this would result in our friends in the 324th Field Artillery flattening the town as soon as we reach it. And so help me God, if you decide to warn them or otherwise betray us in any way, we will come back here and raze your town to the ground. Capiche? And this strategy worked exceptionally well. Though on a few occasions the German garrisons ordered the civilian populace to resist, thus requiring some 105mm high explosive persuasion. It's amazing what a large amount of explosives can achieve, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be your own. Lieutenant Warren Witt of the 330th Infantry Regiment found that out after his platoon captured a German munitions truck. It was unserviceable, so they couldn't steal it, thus they had to destroy it. Given it was full of ammo, the solution was simple. Telling his men to get clear, he pulled the pin on a white phosphorus grenade and chucked it in the back. This achieved the desired effect of triggering a massive chain reaction, cooking off all the ammunition to the point that it sounded like a full-scale firefight was in progress.
Damn.
At which point, 350 German troops came out of the woodline in front of them with their hands up, thinking that a brigade-level assault was currently in progress. Although sometimes the situation was a bit more complicated. G Company of the 331st, while on their advance, got into a huge firefight with approximately a battalion of Wehrmacht troops, when all of a sudden the MG-42 stopped firing, and the major commanding them stepped out into the
Watch
open...
giggling at the cowboy. At the shit that you're typing in chat. Like, you have shenanigans of your own at this point.
...to demand parley. Under orders from his lieutenant, Private First Class Harold Abelman, who spoke German, walked out to meet the officer and immediately demanded his surrender. The major responded, "Us surrender to you? Nonsense, we are demanding yours." Private First Class Abelman looked at him calmly, and in keeping with the best traditions of his division, "We have you surrounded, Major. If you don't surrender now, I will return to my unit and the attack will be on." The German major was dumbfounded. This was a private to a major, and he's telling me to go fuck myself. Impossible. You are my prisoner. If you run, I will shoot.
Sure, buddy, sure.
Good luck, Major. And Private First Class Abelman, in full view of the enemy, chucked his hands in his pockets, turned around, and casually strolled back to his line to inform his lieutenant, who immediately ordered his men to open fire, at which point the German major, accompanied by all of his men, came out with their hands up. However, not everyone was so eager to give up. Sergeant Orton Meisel of the 329th recalls an incident where during an intense...
At this point, this is turning into a Looney Tunes sketch. So true. Well, I'm American and we are great at tomfoolery and trickery. So true.
firefight, he and his squad went on a flanking maneuver, only to run into an SS Obersturmbannführer, or a major, lying in a ditch by a perfectly good motorcycle. Remembering their standing orders, the Americans immediately moved to acquire the vehicle and take him prisoner, when the SS man ordered them to halt. Sergeant Meisel immediately went to whip out his .45, only to realize that...
And I'm from Israel and we are great at avoiding death like cockroaches. You know what? Fair.
He'd left it in his Jeep because the ride was so rough in the vehicle, the holster kept chafing his leg. So he ordered his corporal to shoot him with his carbine. Click. Because riding in Jeeps was so rough, the M1 carbine had a tendency to negligent discharge when it went over a nasty bump.
Oh, fuck.
So he hadn't charged his weapon. Thankfully, though, the private with them had no problems with his Garand and blasted the Nazi at point blank.
Ah, okay.
Which royally pissed off the corporal. Why? Because his beautiful all-American 30-06 round of greatness went straight through the Sturmbannführer's mint-condition Zeiss binoculars.
Jesus!
A souvenir quite literally worth its weight in gold. Look,
oh, so he was like, damn it, Private, I wanted to steal this letter. Why did you have to break it? When Jose was trying to kill you, no one just wanted to point out a fun fact about Jews. Yeah.
tons of other stories just like this that happened all across the division, so covering them all would be nearly impossible. Not to mention a few completely insane ones, such as one of the field artillery guys setting up his AT gun to provide security down a road. Such as one of the field artillery guys setting up his AT gun.
You know they're having a good time. You just know they're having a good time. Look at this shit.
Down a road, only to see a German patrol coming towards him. Without thinking, he used the first weapon.
So you can leave, but it's gonna hurt a lot.
Weapon system he had to hand, that being his AT gun, and sniped the NCO leading the patrol with a direct hit from a 57mm shell.
Damn.
And the funniest part is, when reporting on the story, the divisional newspaper had to add in brackets, he was killed. My brother in Christ, I'd fucking hope so. Although my personal favourite is the field telephone guys coming in clutch. And no, that's not just because my dad was a signaller. They did, in fact, save the lives of the 1st Battalion, 330th Infantry Regiment.
Oh boy.
How did they do it? Well, there was a Tiger tank smashing into the 330th's right flank, blazing away.
I'm dumb, which means durable from experience. I'll survive.
With its 88mm and causing considerable damage. When our intrepid heroes hopped in their stolen Opel sedan they were using to run telephone cables and bravely ran away. However, this Opel had a dodgy carburetor and no muffler, so it made a massive racket, backfiring and roaring away. Except in their panic, the driver lost control, running over a tree stump on the side of the road in the process. When he did that, the engine exploded, the chassis tore apart, and the entire car began disassembling itself.
Oh.
The 3 signalers in the car immediately bailed out, only to be met by some 330th GIs. Upon which point, they were hailed as heroes. Because as it turned out, in their effort to escape, the sheer apocalyptic noise of their crash scared the Tiger commander into thinking that the Americans had a 76mm AT gun, or a battalion of howitzers or something in the area, which led to him closing his hatch, kicking it into reverse, and running for his life.
Oh my god. Okay.
Infantrymen told the signalers not to worry about their car. They promised to go into the next town and steal a new one.
Nice.
And speaking of stealing, by April 8th, the Thunderbolts were really moving now, sweeping aside any resistance they came across. It was then they found the crown jewel of their tactical acquisitions.
Huh?
They loved their fire engines. It's true.
Oh no.
It sure as hell beats walking. But you know what beats driving?
Race.
Flying.
They stole They stole a Messerschmitt 109! Oh! That is just next level. Jesus Christ. Good lord.
Oh, yeah. You better believe it. Lieutenant Ned Burr of the 324th Field Artillery remembers in his diary walking around a fighter base the 83rd overran on the 8th of April. It had been heavily pounded by the 8th Air Force, and there were a number of German aircraft parked in their revetments and one or two in hangars. Various equipment scattered around the place, and other various bits of detritus just everywhere. Obviously, these aircraft weren't serviceable. That is, until the engineers came along behind the infantry, and they had a look. After doing some investigating, they found a Bf-109G in relatively good condition. There were enough spares on the airfield to put it back together, and planes of this era didn't have the complex avionics we have today, so they were relatively sure they could fix it. So, they patched it up, plugged it all together, sourced some avgas from the local Army Cooperation Air Squadron, and then literally kidnapped one of their liaison pilots. Bazooka Charlie thought he had a wild first week on the job. That was nothing compared to this guy. Sadly, I couldn't find the pilot's name. I'd really like to find it.
What a shame.
It's a shame, really, because one of the liaison pilots attached to the 9th Army got an air-to-air kill with his Colt 45.
I beg your finest fucking pardon.
Sick to get him an upgrade. Imagine what he could do then.
Yeah.
What we do have, though, is the first-hand account of Sergeant William Presnell of the 30th Infantry Division, who, while coordinating the advance of his unit, heard the high-pitched whine of a Daimler-Benz 605 engine overhead. Realizing that it didn't sound American, he looked up and recognized the silhouette of a Bf-109. He screamed at his men to take cover and then dived into a ditch on the side of the road, expecting to get strafed. Only nothing happened. Getting out of the dirt, he looked up and saw that this Bf-109 was painted OD green, and in white paint, written in all caps along the underside of the wing, were the words 83rd Infantry Division.
Nice.
These utter madmen, not content with assaulting Berlin on a fire engine and a cement mixer, stole a fucking fighter aircraft. Yet, all of these shenanigans came with a serious issue. If you're advancing this fast, how in the name of God do you keep track of everyone? And more importantly, how do you keep everyone supplied?
You're right.
Well, thankfully for everyone concerned, vehicles weren't the only thing the boys of the 83rd were acquiring.
They were stealing food. Of course they did.
As said earlier, the prerequisite was it had to be useful to the division. And you know what's useful? Radios. Early walkie-talkies and backpack radios were notoriously unreliable and had too short of a range to cover the distances they were making on a daily basis. And running 30 miles of telephone cable on the move per day is completely impractical. So the 83rd needed to find a way to keep their communications operational and, more importantly, streamlined. The first step was actually really easy. The Germans had a perfectly good telephone system. In fact, it was one of the best in the world at the time. The Nazis were big on multimedia communication.
Okay.
And we all know what German engineering is like when you give them network integration and leave them unsupervised.
Right.
That's just a rule for life, by the way. Never leave the Germans unsupervised. So the signal detachment of the 83rd became experts at stealing the entire domestic phone network. They'd secure the local exchange, jury-rig a wiretap, and then pirate the local network, connecting dual lines to the nearest telephone pole as the advance went. However, this naturally couldn't be used for encrypted or sensitive communications, as the enemy could be listening. Well, that's where the other part of their Mafia operation comes in. Lieutenant Colonel Sharp had been in talks with the other battalion commanders about how to solve this problem. Encrypting communications in the 1940s is a manual encoding exercise, which takes forever. And broadcasting in the clear would be a terrible idea for reasons that are obvious.
Yeah.
So the 83rd developed an entirely unique tactical overlay grid for their maps, numbering and assigning code names to various objectives, as well as roads and terrain features. Not even a friendly unit would be able to decipher their communications. So they had complete control over the information battle space, as they say these days.
Nice. Cowboy, get ready for impact. I'm just toss Cowboy at that thing. What? What? Careful, some are booby traps. What? What? Where? The hell? Oh my god, I'm popping again. Good lord.
Now all they needed to do was find a way to transmit it. And you'll never guess the solution.
Hold up, what in the fuck? Jesus, my internet is jumping again. So I'ma use you as a tackle cowboy. What? Fucking what now?
To this problem. Roll clip.
The secret ingredient is crime.
The
course.
83rd developed an entire black market smuggling ring for US Army field radios.
What?
So much so that every unit had an SC-610 long-range radio interleaved with a network of medium-range SC-300s. They had so many radios. It got so insane, the signal troops
You're my decoy? The hell I am!
were running telephone wires while riding on the backs of tanks in the middle of an assault.
Damn.
They were running cables with rounds whizzing past them as the main guns firing. Absolute mad lads. And because of this, they could directly integrate the tank radio nets with the infantry while simultaneously updating headquarters in real time. Lieutenant Colonel Sharp states in his memoirs that by the end of the war, his battalion alone had 4 SC-610s and 35 SC-300s.
Damn. You ain't got a choice in the matter that more epics you will enjoy. Damn it. Depends on which booby traps those are.
He was only supposed to have 9. 2nd Battalion, 329th Infantry Regiment had tactically acquired 26 more radios than they were authorized to have, and other sources corroborate that they weren't the only ones in the division doing this. Everyone was.
Of
The
course.
best part was, though, Sharp also acquired some hardcore SCR-284 long-range radios, which his communications officer installed in a German bus they stole.
No
which
way.
means they had themselves a mobile command center, a remote mobile command center on the move in 1945. So, with communications resoundingly
Nice.
squared away and transport secured at every opportunity, that leaves the final question. How the hell do we resupply everyone?
Right.
Well, again, foraging was a common exercise. Unattended livestock was a supreme risk of being a roast dinner. And of course, you have jam, preserves, and other rations tactically acquired from every house they went through.
of course.
However, they were moving so rapidly that getting time to cook anything would take away from valuable ground gaining and vehicle acquiring time. The divisions assigned 2.5 trucks were assigned to ammunition duty, while fuel trucks were rolling behind the advance. So orders came down that everyone was going to be eating K rations out of their field packs for the foreseeable future, so they could maintain this speed of advance.
Okay.
To which the 83rd said, like hell.
Hell yeah.
This is the E4 Mafia we're talking.
Cowboy thoughts on Eurosummer? Oh, she's alright. Like, it's like Vidal fully like built her from scratch basically, and Nero she's I think Vidal made an entire local LLM for Nero specifically. So like, I got no issue with that.
About. If you think we're to which the 83rd said, like hell. This is the E4 Mafia we're talking about. If you think we're gonna eat paste in a can, you've got another thing coming.
Oh boy.
The logistics guys at the Ragtag Circus put in one of the most heroic efforts of any rear echelon element in the entire history of warfare. Using the vehicles they had tactically acquired, as well as the assigned quartermaster trucks, they burned 20,000 gallons of gas and averaged 300 miles a day.
Damn.
Some of them even going all the way back across the Rhine just to get hot food for the boys.
Good
Over the
lord.
course of their advance to the Elbe River, they would deliver no less than 1.2 million freshly cooked meals, delivered right up to the frontline
Jesus.
troops in US Army field kitchen hotboxes. And trust me on this, anyone who has been on any kind of tactical operation or field exercise can tell you, be it the military, be it the cadets, JROTC, first responders, hell, even the Boy Scouts. When you've been on your feet all day going through incredible stress of any kind, out in the elements, the amount of energy and morale a hot meal gives you is more powerful than any weapon.
Yes.
It's a lesson the US military took to heart. High quality food makes a significant tactical difference on the battlefield.
Yes.
And the 83rd used it to carry out their most important albeit depressing, mission of the war.
Huh?
As the 329th Infantry Regiment made their way through the region of Gruneplanet,
Watch as Rainbow uses Apex as a pair of big up trap as it pops with Bamba in it. Somebody said Bamba? Somebody said Bamba? Fuck. Yeah.
meeting sporadic resistance, they came across a massive underground factory complex. And pouring out of the cave-like entrance were men in boiler suits and striped clothing that looked like pajamas, all of them cheering in jubilation. They immediately asked for the Americans' help. Later that day, they became the first members of the 83rd to liberate a concentration camp.
Oh. Oh. Like a fucking crack addict when they see crack. Oh boy.
But they wouldn't be the only ones. 3 days later, on April 11th, the 331st Infantry Regiment would liberate the Langenstein-Zweiberger subcamp of Buchenwald.
Oh!
As Privates First Class Norman Panagos and Irving Ike Olshaker from M Company entered through the front gate as the guard
Animarchy should have blurred that one.
bolted out the back.
Oh,
The sights
God.
that greeted them were unbelievable,
Oh,
as
God.
men started handing out all the rations they had on them. The first thing they felt was shock, followed quickly
So the magic the magic drug Bamba. Bamba, where's Bamba? Yeah.
by rage. At which point, their skills in tactical appropriations would be utilized in a regimental-wide humanitarian mission, as they scoured the area for medical supplies and hot food for the newly liberated prisoners, while the command team paid a visit to the local mayor and strongly advised that he provide extra food and water for the camp.
Yeah.
They then went and tactically acquired an entire US Army field hospital. But the advance stops for no one.
Dear God.
And so the 83rd kept driving on towards the city of Halberstadt, a major industrial center and road junction. The 329th once again took point on the assault and secured the objective without much trouble. Though how they finally secured the town is rather hilarious. Because their advance was so rapid, they only did a soft clear of the major buildings and then dug in on the outskirts, not realizing that not all the Germans had surrendered or withdrawn.
Shit.
It was then that the supply officer, Lieutenant Harpin, arrived with dinner in the hot boxes, freshly delivered by the quartermaster company. However, as he drove through town on the way to the frontline positions, he saw a German NCO quickly duck behind a building. He ordered the driver to stop so they could take the man prisoner. Jumping out of the jeep, he drew his .45 and signaled his driver to back him up.
We don't do half measures back then. Yeah.
The driver drew his M1 carbine from the scabbard he'd installed to prevent it from going off in the jeep, only to fumble the draw and fire a round into the air.
Huh?
It appeared that all hell was about to break loose, until, to Lieutenant Harpin's utter astonishment, 52 German soldiers came out of the surrounding buildings with their hands in the air,
Good.
thereby finalizing the capture of Halberstadt by complete accident. However, Lieutenant Harpin wasn't out of danger yet. After capturing 52 prisoners and delivering dinner, he went to find his battalion, who had moved on to the next objective. As he entered the town looking for the command post, the infantry squads were clearing the buildings and engaging in some extracurricular property acquisition,
Right.
throwing their loot out of the window onto the sidewalk below.
Oh,
And
no.
as Lieutenant Harpin was walking past, he got smacked directly in the head by a Volksempfänger home radio set, which knocked him out cold. When he regained consciousness in the battalion aid station, he said, and I quote, "Man, it's a hell of a war. I capture 52 Germans with a .45 pistol and then get knocked out by one of my own men with a damn radio." By now, it was April
Okay, that's hilarious.
12th. All that was left was to take the town of Barbie on the Elbe River. This was
Barbie.
it. Their primary objective.
Mm-hmm.
Second Armoured was going like hell towards Magdeburg, and this was their last chance. The boys in the 83rd mounted their ragtag circus and hit the gas, blasting their way through any opposition they found until they reached the outskirts of Barbie itself. And here is where they finally met some strong resistance.
Huh?
The SS troops in the town were fighting a desperate delaying action to buy time for their pioneers to blow the bridge across the Elbe. An effort that would unfortunately prove successful, as during the night they conducted a textbook withdrawal in good order, detonating the bridge after they crossed. This was a crushing blow to the 329th, who had been fighting desperately to seize that bridge, and their day
Fuck.
only got worse, as the news came down that the 2nd Armoured had beaten them to the Elbe by several hours. It appeared, after all their efforts, that in the end they would have to live with 2nd place. Except the attempt to secure a bridgehead by the 2nd Armoured failed, as a counterattack pushed them back across the river. There was a chance. They weren't the first to the river, but they could be the first to cross. Thinking quickly, Colonel Crabble gave the order immediately. Bring up the assault boats and get word to General Macon. We are going now. We are going right now. Get the 331st on the horn and tell them to get over here fast. We're going to get a bridgehead first. Within 2 hours, the boats were in the water, and 1st Battalion, 329th, with lead elements of the 331st, were making their way across. Colonel Buckshot Crabble was running in between the boats, yelling at them to move. Don't wait. Don't stop to organize. Get everyone across as fast as we can. Come on, boys. Berlin's waiting for you. It was then that some of the 83rd members, in a stolen duck amphibious car from somewhere, where they got it, I don't know, rolled up to the riverbank asking for instructions. And he just motioned them to cross. Berlin is waiting for you, boys. Just go! As the driver in the duck hit the gas and roared into the river, Colonel Crabble turned around to face his battalion staff, exclaiming proudly, "They'll never believe this back at Fort Benning." As this was happening, Lieutenant Colonel Sharp and the 2nd Battalion were clearing the town of Barbie when they saw the town hall had a balcony. And on the balcony were the local bigwigs, the mayor, everybody, just watching the mad scramble across the river. And, of course, Sharp's ongoing firefight with the remaining SS defenders. Now, forgive me for making assumptions about people, but after working on this series, my reading of Sharp is one of an exceedingly practical yet compassionate man. A man who loves his men and takes the profession of soldiering incredibly seriously. But every man has his limits. And after liberating a concentration camp or fighting SS fanatics across Europe, resulting in him now being a day's drive away from the Reichstag, he'd had enough. Walking over to a nearby tank destroyer, he asked the commander to aim his main gun at the town clock tower above the balcony and put an armor-piercing round through the 5 o'clock position. Which he did, with pinpoint accuracy. The German town hall staff and the mayor very quickly got the message and vacated the balcony in great haste.
You know what? That was effective, let's be honest. Like, that is not very textbook-like, but it was very effective nonetheless.
By nightfall of April 13th, the 83rd Infantry Division had several battalions across the river from the 329th and the 331st. But more importantly, the combat engineers who had been following along behind with the assault boats immediately began work on a pontoon bridge. And these mad lads ended up being the real heroes. Not content with stealing a BF-109, they decided to steal a whole ass river. Because they got the bridge up overnight. Complete with a sign, naming the bridge in honor of the new president of the United States. The sign read, "Truman Bridge, gateway to Berlin over the Elbe. Courtesy of the 83rd Infantry Division."
He just had to remind them this is war, yes.
This crossing generated much consternation among the defenders of the western front of Berlin, causing it to be the subject of what may be the last concerted Luftwaffe ground attack operations of World War II, with multiple FW-190 fighter bombers desperately trying to destroy it. Alas,
good luck.
To no avail. And then, just to add the cherry on top, adding insult to injury, to get tank support up to the 331st and 329th, who were at that moment expanding the bridgehead and continuing the advance, the 2nd Armoured Division had to ask permission to cross their bridge.
Nice.
After all of that, while the tankers had gotten to the riverfront first, ultimately, in the end, the first to cross the Elbe in force and begin operations against the Berlin defense perimeter was none other than the men of the 83rd and their ragtag circus.
Nice.
However, having reached the capital, resistance stiffened dramatically. Their advance was forced to be far more cautious than they would have liked, advancing just 3 miles out of the bridgehead before they got hit with a ferocious counterattack.
Damn it.
Except by now, the Americans had already established their defensive line, and the Germans just didn't have enough combat power left. A force of roughly battalion strength, aided by a company of Stug 4s, attempted to assault their position head-on, only to be ruthlessly cut down. However, the infantry did manage to surround Easy Company of Sharp's 2nd Battalion, located in a village on the east bank of the river. But the captain in command pulled off an absolutely insane move. He ordered all of his men into the various basements of all the buildings in town and then called a battalion-wide fire mission on his position using the newly issued VT proximity fuse artillery shells to delete the entire grid square with airburst fragmentation artillery.
Okay.
The Germans were forced to pull back with at least 50% casualties. And the total number of American casualties for this entire counterattack? 0. These last gasp counterattacks were repelled emphatically. And with that done, the men of the Ragtag Circus continued their push towards Berlin, marching into the town of Zerbst, seizing the position without firing a shot, liberating a POW camp in the process. They were now only 30 miles from the center of Berlin. And then, General Simpson, commander of the 9th Army, arrived at the divisional headquarters delivering devastating news.
Well, the only good broken arrow, yeah.
Directly from General Eisenhower via Omar Bradley, the 83rd was to hold its present position and await the arrival of the Red Army. The drive towards Berlin was to be halted at once.
No way!
At the Yalta Conference, lines of demarcation had been drawn, and east of the Elbe was territory scheduled to be ceded to the Soviet Union. Logically, this made sense. Why make Americans die for land? They're just going to have to give back in the end. Thus, the capture of Berlin was to be left to the Soviets. Despite the fact that refugees fleeing westwards were already blocking Truman Bridge, the humanitarian crisis resulting from the Red Army's advance was already causing serious issues. In fact, the 83rd had been welcomed as liberators in several of the towns they'd captured because the citizens knew it meant they wouldn't be turned over to Stalin.
Damn.
As we know from history, the cost of this to the German people, both immediately and later during the Berlin airlift, as well as the nationalist propaganda coup the Soviet capture of Berlin would provide to the Soviet and later Russian imperialist political causes, would be catastrophic.
Very.
But at the time, their concerns were more immediate. Americans were dying in Europe every day. Americans they would sorely need to storm the beaches of Kanto and Kyushu. Which came with the next piece of news. The 83rd, despite being on point from Omaha to the Elbe, was once again earmarked to reinforce an invasion on D-Day +10. This time during Operation Olympic, the invasion of Kyushu, Japan in 1946. Thus, the thunderbolt across Europe came to a halt. The Ragtag Circus had given its final performance. For over a week, they held their position until, on April 29th, the leading elements of 1st Ukrainian Front made contact with the division in a town east of Zerbst. On May 9th, VE Day arrived with very little fanfare. As Colonel Crabble says in his diary, it was very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And after they spent the next 2 months training for combat, Japan's surrender in August of 1945 was even more so. At long last, the war was over, and the men of the Ragtag Circus could finally go home.
Sure.
During their campaign in Europe, they accounted for over 75,000 prisoners, more than any other single unit in the European theatre, and more than the entire US Army had taken in World War I. They captured several thousand settlements, including 5 major cities, and covered over 1,500 miles of territory, while fighting in every major campaign the 12th US Army Group was engaged in. And when all was said and done, the 329th Infantry Regiment, 83rd Infantry Division, held a formation parade for inspection by none other than General George S. Patton himself, who, after reviewing the Thunderbolts, said, "That is the finest body of soldiers I have ever seen in the field." An assessment that goes for every single man in the division. The Ragtag Circus accomplished feats that deserve to be written in the tapestry of popular histories of the Second World War, enshrined for eternity in every retelling of the liberation of Europe. The 83rd Infantry Division were courageous, cunning, and all-conquering, from Omaha Beach to the gates of Berlin. Yet many of their stories, legends, and accomplishments have gone forgotten for decades, known only to the dedicated researchers and World War II enthusiasts. But no more. These men will be remembered for all time. At least they will if I have any say in the matter.
Yeah.
And their legacy still survives to this very day.
Wait,
as
really?
the 83rd Infantry Division serves with distinction as a training cadre for the next generation of American leaders.
Awesome.
Teaching the men of the US Army the skills honed all those years ago, keeping a legacy alive of ingenuity, inventiveness, and initiative. A mission more essential now than ever as the last of the Thunderbolts head out for their final campaign on the other side. And it is on that subject I will close the video. Because while many of these American heroes came home and had long, fulfilling lives, in their campaign across Europe, there is one thing everyone watching this video must remember. That behind all these funny stories I've told, all the heroics and acts of daring do I've relayed to you, there was a real human cost.
Yes.
And in this noble effort of liberation, in the cause of freedom, justice, and liberty, 3,500 Thunderbolts laid down their lives to put an end to the worst era of our long and bloody history.
Yeah.
So join me in raising a toast to the men of the ragtag
Salute to him, yeah.
And when you do, make sure that you pray for all of they who gave their tomorrows for our today.
Stand, everybody. That's a lot of names. Dear God. In other words, the soldiers of America, they aren't trained to follow one's orders blindly, but also think and act as needed. Yeah. They all are wrote down and remembered in one way or another. Yeah, they are. That was a big one. Very big one.